As a new agent, you have to learn, and you learn by making mistakes. And that's how I've come up to all this point in my career, because I have made mistakes during my first few years that now I know what to ask and what to do so that I can get this deal to closing.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today's guest is proof that the path to real estate excellence is rarely a straight line. She was born in the Philippines, came to the United States 27 years ago, and built one of the most respected careers in Northeast Florida real estate, one relationship at a time. She earned Rookie of the Year for the Florida region, helped relocate hundreds of military families during base realignment. Closure, there we go, which we talked about in episode 68, if I recall, in our original episode. I remember talking about that, and has since trained and mentored hundreds of agents as a brand ambassador with United Real Estate Gallery. She's a wife, mom, and worship leader, and top producer in nearly 19 years in the market, and she has last on the show nearly 4.5 years ago. It's time to catch up. Let's welcome Marissa Scott to the show.
Hi,
all right,
how are you?
Butchering that intro there. I don't know if my glasses are blurry today or what. I definitely got to go see my optometrist, because maybe I have to go to 22 font on this.
I'm the same way. I actually have my eyeglasses in my purse, so don't feel bad.
So much has happened in the last 4 years.
Yes.
I was looking at, there was some post the other day, just really since the rates went up in May, which was basically about a year after you were on the show, in May of 23. No, actually, I'm sorry. It was
22.
It was 22 when it was May of 22 when the rates went up, shortly, probably 2 or 3 months after I had you on last. And we have seen, obviously, a lot of agents fall out of the business. I think there's also agents, as we were just talking about Paige and some others, where others have actually gotten stronger in the business. So real interesting topics. I think we're sitting on a positive bubble here, because I think we're in such a unique area here in Northeast Florida.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I agree. I think the market is trying to fix itself. I like that.
Trying to fix itself. I agree.
And people are, like many others, they don't do well with the change. They get into this comfort level where the market was so good for them, and then there's a change, and they're freaking out. They don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And we were first homeowners like 17 years ago, where rates are much higher. I remember when we first bought our first house, and the rates were so high.
Yeah.
And we were happy then, and I just remember, I think when the rates went down, we eventually had to refinance and stuff like that. And that's one thing that most buyers don't realize, that these rates, they can change, but the location, the house, it won't. So, so they just have to learn that the rates is temporary. Let's just put it that way.
Date the rate, marry the house phrase got a lot of flack, but it's actually very true. It will move. And right now, as I put out there, as I'm sure you do in the post or when you're talking to people, because the rates are higher and a lot of people are standing on the sidelines, it's still slightly a buyer's market. You're able to negotiate a little bit on the price. You're able to maybe get some closing cost covered. The builders are giving away the kitchen sinks.
Yeah, everything.
So you buy in now, and maybe you make a payment for a year or two. But I think people don't realize, my payment's maybe $100 or $200 higher. If rates go down 1%, it'll drop it, depending how big your loan is. It could be a few $100, and you got it right back. So can you survive $200 for the next 24 months?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I've been telling people, is really hopefully we're not in these rates. Well, I don't think they're not going to be 3%.
No, I don't think we're ever going back to that. I think I'm seeing builders offering like in the mid 4s, I think, even lower than that. I don't think we're going back to, and it's so enticing too, because you see all these sellers that are offering the
buy down.
No, not just the buy down, but absorbing
cost?
The loan. What is the term?
Assumption?
Assumption.
Loans.
And
if you're doing a lot of VA stuff.
Yeah. But, and I've dealt with so much of that lately. It's enticing at first, but then when you look at all the details, like most of these sellers that are offering that, they bought it in the peak of the market. And then their mortgage, and between the mortgage and then the price of the homes, there's a big gap. And if you're a VA, you're used to going into loan without having to bring any money. But if you're going to do assumption, the rate is enticing because it's low. Yeah. But let's face it, how many people, especially military, have 100,000 sitting in their bank account to fill the gap? So until we get, for me, I think until we get the sellers to come down on the price away from I call it the pre-COVID pricing, until we get them down to that, normal pricing for homes, which I know a lot of them, they can't do that because when they bought and then their mortgage is higher, they'll have to either do a short sale to even, so I almost feel like we're going to have to go through that again, the short sales. I started seeing it again.
Do you feel the Northeast Florida market, we, as I mentioned when we first started, we have a positive bubble from the standpoint we are one of the last great areas that's not overwhelmed like Miami or Orlando or Tampa, where we are getting plenty of buyers coming in. Are they coming in like they were in 2020? No, because the rates aren't 3%.
Yeah.
But has that slowed down? But there's still that demand. I personally think if we were at 5.5% on a 30-year fix right now, it would be screaming like it was at COVID.
No, so the difference when we had that peak in the market was people are able to relocate and work from home.
Yes,
and that's not allowed anymore. A lot of them have to report back and they have to go back to where they came from. So
you think that slowed it down?
Yes,
a little bit?
That slowed down. And a lot of people that I've seen selling their homes are one of those people that came here during that time where I want to be living in the beach. I can afford a house on the beach because the rates are so low, and they bought this house, close to the water or something, and then you were working from home for like 1 to 2 years, and then market change, and then they have to go back to work, and at that point they have to sell their homes. So that's what I've been seeing with all of these sellers too. So,
well, I was talking just yesterday at a luncheon. During that time, we also had a lot of internal moves going on, where it was like move to Nocatee or move out of Nocatee, whatever it was.
Yeah,
hey, I want to live near my friends, or where people were like staying in their house 1 or 2 years and then leaving. Where you don't have that for those people who have that pre-2000, spring of 22 interest rates, they're not so quick to move.
Yeah.
Because the payment's so low.
Yeah. And affordability is still a problem, just because we spiked those pricing, even though we're still doing better compared to like South Florida, Miami and all that. I just feel like our pricing here is still a little bit higher, and people coming, or even the ones that are upsizing, if they have this mortgage rate for like 3%, 4%, they want to upsize or upgrade, and they can't because the rates are still higher and the price of homes are still higher. We need to give
the only benefit they have is the last few years, or I say if they've been in the house 3 or 4 years, they might have a little bit of equity.
True.
That they might put down a down payment. But as you know, I'm working with a lot of people where we're working up payments, and when it starts with a 3 in front of it, and you're telling people, hey, your principal, interest, tax, and insurance to me $3,600 a month.
Yeah.
That sets a lot of people back to digest that.
And this is why, new construction are booming, because they have the ability to either buy your rate down or offer like the ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, or the 2Y buy down and all that stuff. So that's why for local people that are trying to upgrade or upsize and all that, they go towards new construction. And that's why you see all this new constructions everywhere.
Let's jump in, because this is a topic I always like to get out, because I think it's very important. If you're not listening to every one of my episodes, this is very important. But if you're listening to every episode, you've heard me say this before. You deal a lot with the military relocation. The importance of really having that discussion with that, especially an active duty person who may get moved in a year, 2 or 3, and buying in a new construction area where there might be building going on for the next 5+ years.
Yeah. I mean, I have people where they were trying to sell their homes in the new construction community, and they just can't compete with the The builders, because of all the incentives that they're offering, I mean, how can you compete with that? The only way you can compete with that is if you really price your home. I mean, not aggressively, I think. You can't even be conservative about it. You just have to be aggressive about the pricing and just be prepared, as long as they know what you're competing against with, I don't think that's going to be an issue. So,
yeah, there's I think every real estate agent that's doing any sort of business or any amount of listings has one of those properties right now. It's in a neighborhood where there's new construction going on, and there are people who are bringing some money to the table.
Yeah,
to get out.
That's part of correcting the market.
Yeah,
we have to give it time to correct the market.
Do you think you think the area is 5 or 10%? A little too high? It could soften that much? What kind of, or just a couple percent? What do you? I
think we have to go below 10%. I think.
Well,
do you remember before COVID?
Yeah.
Where $175,000 home is something that you can pay in Oakleaf. You can't buy that anymore.
Right.
I mean, what happened to those? I mean, I have like sellers that I've sold homes like 10, 15 years ago where they bought the house for $200 and now it's like worth $600.
Yeah.
Like, can we just, I mean, I don't think we're going to go back to that price point, but I think we need to be somewhere in the middle.
The demand factor plays in. The interest rates is the kind of like the throttle.
The demand.
But the demand, that's why I keep saying we're in a fortunate area that there is, people are moving in. Yes. We're moving into Florida, and it's considered affordable to these Northeasterners or even Midwesterners. And in California, this is very affordable.
Yeah.
And we just have that demand to soften back down. I mean, we would have to go on a drought of real estate for a while to get that stuff.
You have to remember, a lot of those people relocating are probably not even 50% of the transactions that we're having in Northeast Florida. It's probably 20-30% of those people that are moving here are relocation. But what you have to factor in the people that I told you that want to upsize, you want to move to a bigger home and all that stuff. So that's why a lot of the higher price homes are selling, because you have all those people that you said from California, from up north, who are trying to move to Northeast Florida, and they think our pricing here is still affordable, compared to where they're coming from.
Right.
But if you think about just us Floridians, or even from the people here in Jacksonville, if you're thinking about upsizing, you're going to have to think twice about it, because it's just not as affordable yet.
Well, what are you seeing, even in your transactions, but even the people that you mentor? From what I'm seeing when I'm looking up agents, obviously I'm always trolling and seeing, should I have this agent on? Or do they have the production? What have they done in the last few years?
Yeah.
I'm noticing, because I'll see their transaction list, there's a lot of cash deals on there still.
Yeah.
Which drives price up too, because people have the ability to pay cash.
I mean, but it's still not dominating the market. The cash buyers are still not dominating the market. They're there. They're just not dominating the market. I think Northeast Florida is military. We have a lot of, and that's one thing about Northeast Florida is we have a steady group of people coming in and out. But what I've been noticing about a lot of the militaries that are coming here, because of what's going on with the market, compared to like the past 15 years I've been dealing with them, and then they're not afraid to commit to buying and staying. But now, because of the affordability, because of the interest rate, a lot of them are looking at either going into the base housing or renting.
I have heard that. I have heard that they are leaning, where just a few years ago they were like, hey, no, let's go buy a house because as they
military,
pay a little bit more, but not a lot more.
As far as like we as ex-Navy wife, when we go to one place, the military housing is always available for us, right? But the incentive is, you're getting housing allowance. Why not use your BAH to pay for your mortgage? Even though we know we're only going to be there for 2 years. But now, most families are thinking, well, we're only going to be there for 2 years. Why are we going to buy if the houses are so expensive and the rates is still pretty high? So I'm seeing a lot more people looking at rentals right now.
I want to jump in, give some nuggets to our agents that are listening.
Okay.
All right. You're 4 more years in the business since the last time we sat down. Is it because you, if I recall, you do trainings at United Real Estate Gallery? I want to say Buffini, but it's not Buffini, is it?
Yeah.
It is Buffini?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then my memory was coming good. Okay. What are you seeing? Obviously, the market changed. Interest rates went up. What are the different demands are you seeing from some of the newer, or maybe some of the agents who are, they're not Paige or Jocelyn, or so they're trying to learn the business and get going.
Yeah.
Whether they're very new or maybe they've been in the business 2 or 3 years, but they're still sticking with it. What are you seeing as some of the change in their needs, their demands versus what it was, prior to when we talked last time?
So since I got licensed, there's a lot of changes. And I think one of the biggest change that me personally struggled with was when we had that lawsuit. And then we had
to... the NAR.
The NAR lawsuit. And then they're now having to control everything that we do. And I know for a veteran, you call it veteran agent, an old agent, we
More
get
mature agent.
we get set in our ways. We have been doing this. We have a process how we deal with people and how we do our business for the past 15 years. And boom, in a few days, they change it to where it's, for me, the changes are more transactional, and it's harder for me because I always think, and the only reason why I survived this business this long is because it's all about relationship for me. A lot of our new agents, and there's some few agents there that reminds me of myself when I first got my license. And I wish when I'm getting lazier, I wake up in the morning and I always just remind myself, Marissa, just be like that agent when you first got your license. Treat it like this is the first day of getting your license,
Right.
A lot of them, their expectations are higher, the new agents. They think because they watch all these shows, they see this, this stuff on social media about how everything is so great. And so they come in and their expectations are like, oh, I'll leave my full-time job, get into real estate, and then I'll make money right away.
Right.
And their struggle right now is really making that first transaction.
So,
Veteran agents are struggling too. But I see new agents that are doing okay. I wouldn't say doing well because I only say that if you've been in this business for, like I said, after 5 years and you're still in this business, then you're doing good. But if you're new, I think that's the demand that I've been seeing is agents are just really wanting like an instant.
Is it because they're not plugging into the systems that are there? I mean, there's a lot of experienced agents like yourselves to follow or apprentice under, if you want to call it, be mentored by, and they're not plugging into the things that you learned. You can reflect back and go, if I started over again, I'd do it this way. That they're not plugging into that system that is basically being put out there every day to them.
Why would they? Because everything you can Google, everything you can chat GPT. So most agents, I don't want to say brand new agents, they're becoming more dependent on that stuff, and they're not realizing, or they're forgetting that this business is about relation. And you can't just rely on all the technology to keep that relationship. So they depend on training online. Any questions they need to ask, instead of getting training on at their office, they'll
sit at home,
Google it or chat GPT.
Right.
Or they're going through something about a transaction or something like that. Instead of just going out there and do more transactions and learn from each transaction, they're sitting there just chat GPTing or Googling what they need to do. But
are they actually, because it's not that their information that they're getting is not any good.
Yeah.
Because it's only, the AI models are already pulling from the Buffinis and all these other people that are putting information in. So they're getting that information. Are they executing on it though?
That's the thing. So there's some agents that will attend all the trainings, but then they don't apply it to, you have to go out there and do business to apply all these things that you've learned from training, because the best lesson you've learned, the best information that you'll get is when you go out there and start doing these transactions.
All right, so I'm going to pull this tip out of you for them, and not that this is not rocket science. If you don't have a deal, they should be hanging around someone who is, and maybe helping them, maybe listening to their phone calls, maybe going out on the call. Maybe there's an inspection that day. They should go out and hang around and listen.
Yeah, the ones who are really wanting this, the one who are on fire in this business are doing those. But there's a lot who left their full-time job because thinking it's an easy job. So they go to their first training, like, I have to sit here and do all this training. Like, I thought I was just going to make my first closing.
You said something earlier when I first asked the question about, they see they're watching the TV and so forth, but what it made me think of this question. How important is, I know you're very deep in your faith, but to remain positive. The markets change, and you've got to see, we were talking pre-show about, how he guides us down different paths at different times, and how important it is to stay positive. But oftentimes that staying positive, going out and hanging out with other people who are being positive and talking about, hey, this is how we got to get better. This is how we're going to get better. This is how, what we did yesterday, that was a success, and hearing and feeling and seeing others surrounding yourself with those people.
So I always say that it has to do a lot with personality. So you can't just say, one person can do this and then we'll adapt to it and do well. And then you have another person, so I'm the type of person, I like seeing enough stuff to get me going, to put fire on me, right? But there's some people where they look at stuff and like, oh, I'm such a loser. Why am I not having this, And sometimes I get to that point too. It just really depends on my mood and stuff like that. So, what I always like to do when things are slowing down, when things are different or challenging for me, is I go back to basic. Going back to basic meaning what I did on my first year. This is before ChatGPT. This is before all the access to the internet and all that stuff. What did I do on my first year that kept me in this business this long? And that's what I do. Hanging out with people. I don't know if you've seen me hang out and do networking with fellow agents. Not so much. I get to the point in my career, in my life, where I know the right people that will send me positive vibes, people that I look up to, real successful people.
Right.
And there's a lot of, I would say, fake successful people out there. And to be honest, I can't be just looking at one person who's been doing this for 1 year and did really good and say, I'm going to follow that person. I say, it's nice to learn what they're doing, but I don't think I would just hang out with that person. I want to see that person make it 5 years or so before I really think, before I really consider them successful. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, it is a month. What did you do last month? Which you had, if I saw you, to get a decent
I was surprised about that. And really, I meant it when what I posted in there. I get to the point in my career where it's not about numbers, it's not about rankings, it's not about all these other things. And really, when I learned that I did so well last month, but then I got that phone call from a previous client of mine 16 years ago, who I guess I inspired because of how I brought my kids to showings, and now she calls herself on Instagram closings and car seats. And she said it was because I inspire. I used to show properties with them with my kids strap on, so.
Closings and car seats. Yeah. It's good though.
Yeah. So it just changed my perspective. It's not, I was just really, those moments meant so much more to me now than the numbers. But then I'm not neglecting those accomplishments.
Well, we all are, and as we mature, we all get that.
I like the word mature.
Yeah, we all get that little momentum from something different as time goes on. Like you said, whether it's your kids and going through that period of time, and then and like you said, you've narrowed down the group that you want to hang with, and
correct.
Where a new agent, you've got to find that. Some people like to use the word tribe, which is very good. You got to find that group, and your group might change over time. It might, which often, like we always talk about, it might change your brokerage.
Correct.
You might be someone, if your brokerage isn't moving, that you're going to reach a level there where you're like, what, I now need to go to a brokerage where I'm surrounded by all people who are doing numbers, and that's the atmosphere you want to be in, and you gotta look and find that, and constantly evolving.
Yeah, and I used to do that. I used to go to all of the events just with Jacksonville producers, to not only feel good, but just to because you're with all these successful agents, but to also learn from them, talk to them, if there's anything that I can really get out. But the problem is a lot of these people, they spend more time doing that than really focusing more on this business.
You can. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. I call going through the motions basically.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm working today because I'm going here or going for coffee, going for lunch. And,
yeah. I mean, I can even fill my calendar. I mean, my calendar is so filled. Like we were talking about this yesterday. And I still have like people or agents that wanted to meet me for coffee or something and I still haven't had a chance to. And then on top of that, I have my friends and my family. So it's all about balance. So.
Yep. All right, let's dig into some real business questions here. All right.
I think you got the wrong person for that.
Jacksonville was just ranked number 4 most buyer-friendly housing market in the country by Zillow for 2026, beating out Miami, Tampa, and Pittsburgh. I don't know what makes Pittsburgh so desirable, but it's on that list. You've been working the market for nearly 19 years. Does that ranking match what you're seeing on the ground?
Yeah, just because what we talked about earlier, we're compared to those other cities, we're still much more affordable. And I always tell this to a lot of my people that relocate to Northeast Florida, land-wise, we're the biggest city, but you won't feel that. And there's still a lot of space in our city, so you don't feel like so crowded. Even our rush hour traffic is nothing compared to Los Angeles or Miami. I think if people are looking at relocating to Northeast Florida, with the proximity to the ocean for us, the land size, we're one of the biggest. I think they see us very attractive, and we don't smell like paper mill anymore.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my husband was sharing with me when he was looking at history of Jacksonville. If we didn't have those paper mills, we would be as big as Miami, or if not bigger. But for some reason, those paper
stunted
mills,
our growth for a little while.
Yeah, it did. That's what he was saying. Those paper mills, like people that are wanting to come here, as soon as they land at the airport, they're like, what is that smell?
Yeah. I said, obviously going to school in Charleston, I always remember the smell from the paper mills.
From here?
No,
over there.
In Charleston, South Carolina, the paper mill's there too.
Oh, okay. I thought it's...
Oh, yeah, it does. If the wind blows in the wrong direction or whatever it causes.
I didn't know you're from South Carolina.
No, I just went to school there.
Okay.
I actually grew up in Massachusetts, but...
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
the paper mills, and the wind was blowing in the wrong... And where I went to school, and... I'm old, but I'm not that old. We didn't have air conditioning, so you had the window open all the time and the fan blowing. So it wasn't like you could close the window and keep that smell of the paper mill out.
Yeah.
So,
but I was just going to add back to those top the number for the rankings, because if you think about it, who wants to go to Orlando when it's such a tourist destination? Who wants to go
there when you want to spend the weekend?
Exactly, like what we do now with our kids, or who wants to go to Tampa, West Palm Beach, or all that stuff? It's still as big. Here we have the historical part of Northeast Florida, where you have St. Augustine, you have the beautiful Amelia Island, so those two cities, they're so attractive to a lot of these people relocating here.
Yeah, there's definitely no doubt the Fernandina Beach, Amelia, and St. Augustine, north and south of us, where we're out here in Jacksonville right now, are little treasures, and could be just a little weekend, little getaway if you wanted to.
You're gonna laugh at this because I have a perfect definition for St. Augustine. My husband always laughs when I say it.
All right.
I said St. Augustine for me is like our Jacksonville, Paris. Paris.
Oh.
It's our own version of Paris without the towers.
We have the Flagler building there. We'll call that the tower.
There you go.
All right. One important topic right now, obviously out there, is pricing. Jacksonville's market quietly tightened in March. Inventory shrank 17.5% year over year, while the rest of the country was gaining a supply. Competitive pricing from the start still, but I'll tell you, my eyes are set. The clearest path to avoiding prolonged listings. And talking with everybody on, like, when you're going in and sitting down on a listing appointment right now, knowing how does your conversation go across? If someone's watching this right now that might be considering you to be their listing agent, how is that conversation
They might not hire me after this comment. A lot of things happens before I meet with them in person. So this is when I do all my research before I meet with them in person, because the goal when I meet them in person is just to finalize the listing appointment, basically. I want to have all my numbers ready and all that stuff. I am probably the most realistic listing agent out there. I want to be I want to be careful or sensitive to their situation because number one, that's
you don't want to insult them.
Exactly.
You got to ask them. You got to get the background
correct.
on everything.
But
yeah.
I have to be the person that will tell them the truth.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of agents there that will tell them something different than what I'm going to tell them. And it may sound very promising to them. You know, for me, I don't want to get the listing just so that I can put my name on it and not sell. Because at the end of the day, it hurts the relationship. And it hurts me.
It's stressful.
Yeah, it's stressful. It makes me sad when I don't sell a property.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we put money into it. We we advertise, we market the property. We spend a lot of time with the property. When it doesn't sell...
I don't think people realize this is one thing that, you know, after the NAR settlement, I always thought the show was important to get across to people what agents go through.
Yeah.
And when every day that, you know, they're happy to have got the listing. Everyone's happy to get a listing. But if they don't do it right and it sits on the market every week, every day, they've got to update that seller like, okay, yeah, you know, or we're not, no one's coming to see the house this Saturday, or hey, I'm going to do, it's stressful. You don't want to have too many of those conversations.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully people are coming in and looking at the house, and maybe if they're not making offers, okay, it's like, hey, we're getting a lot of, but no one's making an offer. Let's take a look at that. But you have something to work with. But when it's crickets, and no one's coming by,
and you know, and to be honest with you, I have lost sellers just because it gets to a point where they just want their opinion about the property, you know, and they're not willing to listen on what I was telling them about what we should do pricing wise, because they're still stuck on that. I call it the COVID pricing. Yeah. You know, and I just need to let them realize we're not there anymore. And I always tell them the first 3 weeks of putting the property on the market is the most important one, because I feel like if I don't sell this property on that first 3 weeks, the property's going to sit. Yeah. Or not even sell, you know. And so the pricing is still what's driving, you know. And when I go to my listing appointment, you know, of course I ask how much you owe. That's the first question I ask. How much do you owe on your mortgage? Because I want to match it with the valuation of the property. How much difference are we talking about here? Do they have ability to walk away from this deal, especially, you know, if they just bought the property during COVID time, you know, so I need to see what's their ability to just walk away from the transaction without making that huge profit on it, because we're not there anymore. This might be a sales skill that someone tries, you know, because in sales, you try different things, you know, when you ask certain questions during the conversation to kind of obviously lead them to where you want to go, but asking their expectation before you actually show them what you feel. Have you tried both? Because I imagine some of these people who think their house is worth a lot more. Yeah. That's really what we're talking about here. Yeah. People who want that extra $20,000. Well, sometimes you just price it $20,000 over what it's really worth. You don't get any showings. Yeah. So I would do that with them if they're really pushy. You know, you get those, you know, clients that just think they just know everything, and you'll be like, why are you hiring me? You know, but I will I'll give them the reality of the market, set the expectations, and try to get their thoughts on it. What do you think about this? And, you know, I try to maintain a weekly, you know, like update with my sellers so that they know what's going on with the market. And I've learned this from Buffini, actually, from training. It's better for you to spend 2 to 3 minutes calling your seller weekly and give them an update than be silent for weeks, and then you're having to make that difficult phone call, and it will last like probably 30 minutes or something. So it's so true in our business, because our transactions are not a few hours, they're weeks or months. Yeah. And if you're not calling them, they just assume you might have forgot about them. Yeah. And you're having to come up with more, you know, things to say versus, hey, this is an update, 5 minutes, you're done. They feel comfortable. They've heard from you. That's it, you know. So, or and some of you are, you know, if you're listening to this right now, that was obviously solid advice. Put a little market report. Use some AI. Create a nice email, and then just say, hey, I emailed you something. Take a look at it, and that way, maybe you're
a little nervous on the phone. You don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to, because they may have some questions that are just going to bring out your emotions in it because you're frustrated it hasn't sold.
Yeah.
Get it down. Put it down in an email. That's a they can look at it at their convenience, but don't just send it. Make sure you're either making a call or texting them saying, "Hey, I sent you an email. Take a look at it. Let me know what you think."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You cannot ignore them because it's only going to create, I'm going to just say, just create angst. It just creates a tension.
It affects the relationship. Yeah. Really. So, I mean, how would you feel if you didn't hear from your wife for 1 week?
Yeah.
You'll be mad. I mean, if I don't hear from my husband for 2 hours, I'll be mad.
He's got to text you from the plane.
You've done it before.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right. The best real estate lessons don't come from spreadsheets. They come from the field.
Yes.
What's a situation from the past several months, maybe this past year, where a client, a deal, a challenge that stuck with you?
I have one very recent. It was actually a listing I have at Jacksonville Beach. We talk about friends and acquaintance and colleagues. And if you ask me the question, I would probably, a few years ago, I'll probably say friends. I have a colleague or acquaintance where I took the listing and, very strong personality. I think we share the same personality,
like kinds attract.
Yeah. But at that point, because she's still a client, and she takes care of my face, I have to be sensitive. I have to be careful on things that I'm going to say. I ended up losing the listing. It kind of still lingering, because in my mind, I should have not lost that listing. I should have been able to sell that only if we came to an agreement on what
she was not taking your full advice on the professionalism of what you do to sell it in the period of time that she thought was reasonable. And therefore she got upset because it didn't, but it's because you went with her advice, what she wanted, what she thought was.
I mean, so not getting into the full detail, basically, yes. Yeah.
That's probably one of the most, in any sales, when you are working with, friends, families, colleagues, close things, it's like, you don't want to upset them. You guys you're in a circle, and it can be touchy.
Right.
And I think to those listening out there, if you're the person who is in this case receiving the service, if you were listing my property, that you need to if you're hiring that person because they're professional and you know them and you trust them, let them do their job.
Yeah.
Just step away.
And, and sometimes we can't really blame that person too, because, this particular person, I think she's dealt with the different agents in the past that kind of disappointed her, and so that's one thing I would say that I'm a little bit different, or what stands out compared to other agents is that I treat, even though people says, oh, this is all business, no string attached, don't be person. When you pour your heart and your soul and your everything in a transaction, that's just not a business for me. That's very personal. And so that's why I think that's one of the reasons, even though we're close acquaintance, it becomes part of me. That deal becomes part of who I am. And so that's why it hurts when we don't get the job done.
Because we both have great faith in knowing that he's guided. I use the analogy or the phrase a lot of times, in the woods, if the tree falls and there's no one there to hear it, doesn't make any noise. And when you start thinking that, well, I chose Marissa, but if this other agent did it, I would have got another $10,000 or $20,000 or whatever. If you are going to live like that, you're going to live a very stressful, just let it go. If you're going to choose somebody, choose them, and then give them, if they're close to you, give them the full faith that what they deliver is to make your life just that more peaceful, and you appreciated doing business with someone like and trust, and maybe you go to church together, whatever it is, and it's that you're helping feed their family and back and forth, because you obviously she does your skincare, and so there was a trade back and forth a little bit there. I just feel people get a little too worked up and like what could have been if I like her, but is she really going to get? She's been doing this. We had 17, 19 years?
19 years.
19 years. She knows what she's doing. She's trying to get top dollar for you. She wants to be able to say, I got top dollar for your home.
Yeah.
We all want that success story. And I just think a lot of people, there's a good group of people that just don't have faith in others that they're going to do the best for them. Which I just simply ask them, then why did you choose that person if you don't think they're going to do the best for you?
There you go. And I think faith is one thing, but I think trust has a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not that they don't trust you, it's just they just have a problem trusting people.
Yes.
And it's so hard to kind of, and that's probably one of the most difficult clients, not because they're difficult in some ways, but they're just so difficult because you can't break that. When they're having trust issues, regardless of what I do.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right.
Yeah, and this business is about
it's an internal thing.
This business is only good if they have trust in you.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just have a hard time trusting someone, not necessarily just you. And so that's just how I look at things, So
yeah. Yeah, no. One of the things we talked about earlier, we change who we hang out with, and the one thing I've learned in maturity is, my wife's a little bit younger, so sometimes I have to look. It's like it'll work out. Just let it take its course.
Yes.
Your kid's gonna fall. He's gonna skin his knee. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It happens. So don't just say okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And I think as a older dad than if I had my kids
mature dad,
thank you. Than if I had my kids 20 years earlier or 15 years earlier, I would treat things differently. But because I'm that much older, I realize, and I know when I'm sitting here talking, my son's driving now, and I'm just waiting for that night he comes home and says, Dad, I scratched the side of the truck or something, right? So hopefully it's just that. Mm-hmm. But it's going to come. Mm-hmm. And you have to say, all right, man, we'll take care of it. What happened? Okay, next time, that's life.
True.
But that's maturity. Where
Correct.
Others, you got to start building a trust and realize, you know what? I've done this so many times and this has been the result. So, okay, hey, do it. And
just do it again.
That's what I didn't have control of the other results. So.
Yes. I mean, that's what we have to do. So
let's jump over to our military families here at NAS Jax in Mayport there. And I don't know if this number is correct. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But in 2026, an E5 with dependents receives $2,181 per month BAH under the Jacksonville military housing area. Mm-hmm. You helped relocate hundreds of military families during the base realignment, which was... that was really early in your career,
yes,
right? That was
correct. That was 2008, 2009, yes.
And have been doing it ever since. When a service member calls and says, I have orders, obviously, to come to Jacksonville in 30 days to figure it out, what are the first three things that you're going to talk to them about?
Well, so by the time we got the phone call, most of them are referrals, so I already have some information about them, like their ranking, so that I know how much BAH they're getting and all that stuff. The second thing I asked them is, how big is the family? Because money and then the size of home, you have to kind of match that, right?
Yes, right.
And so I asked that question, and area, if they're familiar with the area, a lot of them they're not, but they talk to a lot of their buddies at work. A lot of them move close to the base just because that 17 turns into a speed 500 at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So they, so I asked them, and then I asked if the wife is working, because then you'll know if they find something, they have ability to go higher if they want to, because the wife is working and she contributes to the bills or something. So those are the questions I asked them.
What are some of the things that you've obviously have changed over here? We're talking, 19 years. Has anything changed from the standpoint of what they're more concerned about today than maybe they were, say, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, the pricing of homes and if they can sell it. Because a lot of them, they don't get to stay here. Right. I mean, the maximum I think they can go is 4 years. And then either they have to go somewhere or retire.
Right.
So
do you possibly guide them to say, hey, there is some real incentives on the new, but if we move, maybe 10 minutes further out
Yeah,
and get
yeah,
an
yeah.
existing
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
You go through that. Are you finding some of your, if we looked at it, like, let's say the last 3 or 4 years,
yes.
are you doing more existing homes than new with some of these?
It's balanced. It really just depends on their needs. Luckily, we're NAS Jacksonville. So I do a lot of NAS Jacksonville, by the way, because my husband's background and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the one great thing about the location of NAS Jacks, it's where Oak Cliff, Eagle Harbor, Fleming Island is, and the pricing over there is somewhat falls under where they need to be as far as their housing allowance goes. So if they really want to deal, if they're like, oh, we've heard the traffic there is really, but then I always tell them we can cross the Buckman Bridge. You'll somehow avoid those traffic on 17, but the prices of homes are a little bit more expensive.
Right.
Unless you want to go to Nakari. I mean, I have one person that I moved from, I think he was stationed in Blount Island.
Yeah. The marine.
Yeah, the marine over there. And I got them to buy a house in Oak Cliff. And he was driving that. And I think I remember how I sold that because they fell in love with the house. At the end of the day, these people falls in love with the house. Location for them doesn't really matter as long as they fall. But I remember how I sold that because the wife is so in love with the house. And the husband like, I'm driving 45 minutes each way to work. And I said, well, that's actually a great thing because that means you have 45 minutes to simmer down from work, and then you come home and you're all refreshed, and your wife will be so happy to see you.
Well, as soon as you can get on 295, because obviously 295 will drop you off right there at Blunt Island.
It's all highway now, so
Yeah. Obviously, big thing and this has changed too. So this is just going back to where I was 4 years ago when you were on, insurance. We used to wait, it wasn't really a big deal. Oh, a week or two before we're trying to wind down a loan. Hey, we got to get that insurance quote.
Yeah.
Now we're getting it up front. So Jacksonville homeowners insurance cost most buyers between $2,800 to $4,000 per year. And anyone listening, there is, depending on the house condition, the roof, obviously it's new and so forth. I am getting quotes lower than this, but some might be in a flood zone. Maybe you have to have flood insurance or whatever. So $2,800 to $4,000 per year in 2026. Homes built after 2015 average about $1,900 per year. Homes built before 2000 are up in the 3,000s for insurance on a yearly basis. When you're working with a buyer relocating from out of state, at what point in the process do you bring up insurance cost, and how does that conversation change what they possibly could be looking at?
Well, it happens on the first conversation because we're talking about where do you want to stay as far as your monthly mortgage payment, and then we're factoring the rates if they go with resale instead of new construction. And then they don't pay mortgage insurance because they're VA, but then we talk about homeowners insurance. And that's a big factor now, especially if they're looking at homes near NAS Jacksonville that are older. So it comes very early on in the conversation because that's like what $300-$400 per month more on. I mean, it's ridiculous how expensive. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of my military people that are looking, they ended up going new construction because new construction lower cost for homeowners insurance. And then what I normally tell them, if the first insurance premium when you buy the first house is always lower, and it's the second year when it keeps going higher and higher. And what I always just tell them, and I still do this until this day, every year all the people I close with the year prior, I check on them and say, hey, I'm pretty sure you're getting insurance quotes from your insurance guy and you're probably like having a heart attack because it's so much. I said, just tell that guy to reshop. Because a lot of people don't know that they
should be doing it annually.
Yes,
doubt.
A lot of homeowners didn't know that they can do that.
Yeah.
So.
No, that is true. I actually remember. I think I actually had a customer one time. He did it like every 6 months. But they should be doing it annually as their policy because they've already paid for the year, type of thing. But as you start to get, you typically get that notice that, hey, it's time to renew. Your escrow is paying for it, so the money's already there for you. But you should be reaching out.
Yeah.
And the really good insurance agents that you and I want to work with, they should be doing that already. Making sure that the policy is competitive.
Yeah. Or you set an alarm on your phone a year before the year expires. contact your buyer ABC and ask them to contact their insurance person.
Well, just another good reason for any agent too. That's, when the person's coming up on their 1-year anniversary,
There you go.
just doing that call or doing that reach out to say, hey, just make sure you call your agent
If you want to have a reason to contact them.
Yeah, no reason to contact. All right, so we have been talking a little bit about new construction and resale. Builders offering, obviously buy downs. I think a lot of people don't understand how are the builders getting these rates that much lower. It's not always a buy down. What they're basically doing to really simplify it.
Take your money.
Well, yeah, part of it's built into the price because what they're doing is they're committing to a block of money. That's why a lot of times they're putting on pressure on it. Hey, this house has to close by the end of the month because they've committed a block of money to an investor.
Correct.
And they've got to put the loans in that package. And so they need that deal to close. And that's why because they're pre-committing that money, they're getting, that little advantage, for you. And then obviously if they're doing a 2-1 buy down, the cost of that, well, that's obviously rolled into the cost of your home. And they're running on thin margins because of the rates and so forth. But
they're still making money.
This is how they're moving their product. So to go back to it, builders are offering 2-1 mortgage rate buy downs and closing cost incentives, even incentives for real estate agents to bring their customers by, meaning resale sellers aren't just competing with the neighbor's house anymore. What are the real trade-offs between new construction and resale in Jacksonville right now, and what do buyers consistently misunderstand about builder incentives?
Well, I think I just did a video about this week. I'm part of the United Realty Ambassadors program, so I post once a week like a video, about real estate and stuff like that. I think one of the things that buyers are not realizing, they can't just walk in first at a model without their agent. Because a lot of these builders, they won't let you bring your agent back if they're not there on your first visit. And so I always tell my people, don't go to the model home without me. If you want to go, let me know and I'll meet you there. Some of the things that site agents are good if you have a relationship with them. They'll tell you and your buyers up front what they're going to get or what they can offer. But one thing that buyers doesn't know is that there's so much negotiation that can happen if you have a realtor.
And what to negotiate.
Exactly. Yeah. So most builders, they will say, if you use our preferred lender, we'll get you this rate and we'll also pay your closing costs. But they're not saying prepaids. They're not saying we'll get you a refrigerator. They're not saying all these other things. And so that's when a realtor comes in there, and then that's when the realtor negotiate those things on your behalf. So those are some of the things that I think buyers doesn't know when it comes to builders.
Well, it actually brings up, that spins off on two things. Like I said, the buyers, you have to understand, you want to find an agent who is in the know
familiar.
Familiar with what these, and every builder's a little different.
Correct.
What they offer, what's included, what they can negotiate on, and what they can't. Because I think talking to someone recently, there's you may say, hey, I want to negotiate on this, and the site agent may say, well, that's actually non-negotiable. We can't move off that price.
Yeah.
But there is something that is negotiable. They're not going to suggest it though.
Correct. That's correct. The other thing that they've also experienced in the past, builders, lenders, they don't have a lot of flexibility with the financing, like as far as debt to income ratio and all that stuff. They're for me, I always call it, they stick with the boat.
Yeah, certain clients, you hit a wall. You can't budge a inch.
And when the buyer is so set with that house because it's brand new and all this and that, they're like so devastated when they can't move forward because the lender for the builder denied their loan. What they didn't know is that they can still proceed with that property. You bring in another lender and builder will honor what they said they would pay, as long as they get a denial letter, or as long as their preferred lender cannot compete with what the other lender is giving you.
Right.
So.
Well, it just goes back. I haven't mentioned it recently, but I know on different shows, having worked for multiple different lenders, all of them have caps. There's literally some that cap the VA loan at 50% on the debt ratio, where others are like, well, when we run it through the automated underwriting and it approves it, it's approved.
Yeah.
We roll with it because it's calculating all the other factors in there, and that might be in the mid 60%.
Yeah.
So there's all these different things. So yeah, sometimes if you say no there, but there's just possibilities you want to get a second opinion.
Correct.
100%.
Yeah.
What I wanted to get across is for your tip with your experience working with the builders to newer agents, the importance of maybe they are busy to go out and talk to some of these site agents.
Yeah.
I imagine some of these site agents, when there's no customers around, will strategize with you because they want you to bring.
Correct.
They want the relationship too. They want you to bring them business.
I mean, I often, refer to, like, if you're selling food for business, how would you sell the food if you don't know what you're selling? It kind of goes with, like, real estate. How do you know what the builders are offering if you don't know what they're offering? And the only way, like that's so important about, I know they started doing caravan for new agents. That's a one good outlet for them to be more familiar about what's going on with the new construction, because they oftentimes they host it at the model home. So that's one great way to learn about the products. But, one of the things that I don't have any problem doing is, letting that site agent send me a weekly special, because they would, like, that's when I know, especially when they're offering those incentives for realtors, it's like they're paying 5%. I need to sell this house before then you start looking at your people.
Well, especially when you got that, sometimes you got a difficult deal. And I remember working with the builder. That was one thing the builder doesn't often always show all their inventory. And you're talking to an agent, you're trying to find a particular price point home to get around this payment so that they could get approved, and you're like, hey, well, what does that builder have available? We know they're going to cover closing costs, so that helps us out, maybe because they're tight on their down payment or whatever it may be. You need to know these puzzle pieces, so when you are presented with the challenge, you know what, I think that one over there might actually work. Let me take you over there and see if you like that.
And for new agents, if you don't have time because you're too busy networking or attending free lunch on the model, then reach out to these new communities, get a copy of their spec sheets. The spec sheet shows everything that they have available for the next few months, what they're willing to close, what person
what's coming available.
Exactly. So having that. But of course, it also helps a lot if you go visit the model home. So that you can see what product you're trying to sell to people.
Well, it goes out to building that relationship. The site agent wants to build the relationship with you, but they're stuck there. So their only way they're going to know to reach out to you is if you come by and see them, introduce yourself, get to know them, and say, hey, send me your spec sheet every week or whatever, or how often you update it or whatever. Tell me what's going on so I know. So if I get a customer, I can bring to you. Every site agent in town, if they're worth anything, is going to be sending you that information.
And if they're thinking about, as a brand new agent, they're thinking about growing their network. Yeah, it's great to grow your network with fellow realtors just for future transactions with them, but how often do you really do transaction with them, right? But if you really want to grow your network, grow it with site agents. Go bring them coffee. Say, hey, I'm coming by. You want a cup of coffee? I'm going to stop on my way in. Because guess what? When that site agent, you earn their trust. If they get a customer coming to their model home and they're like, we still have a home to sell, guess what happens?
Call Marissa because she'll get it sold for you. You may
not be able to represent those buyers because they've already been to the model home. But if you have that relationship, and that happens a lot of times to me.
It's happening a lot right now because I'm, the creative lending that we're doing, and in the bridge loan, I just did one recently where someone was buying a new construction home. It wasn't one of the big tract builders; it was more of a private builder. But the spec home was ready; they wanted it. They didn't want to wait they didn't want to do this whole stuff. They wanted to move into the new home and then go and prep their current home and sell. So we did a little bit of a bridge and made it happen. That's happening a lot, actually.
Yeah. So that's probably one of the best advice I could give.
No, that's solid. That's solid advice. Jacksonville is officially a 1 million person city. NAR designated in 2026 hotspot, projecting 14% sales growth and a 4% price appreciation, where the median home price is $304. I guess for all Duval County, maybe that's how they're roughly half of Miami. when someone calls you from out of state, they've done their Google research. They think they know Jacksonville. What's one thing they almost always have wrong?
They think that they can slice the price of homes so much when they come here. They think that they can
lowball.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have like a customer from Boston. I've showed them numerous homes.
He just thinks he's smarter.
Well,
he doesn't realize everyone is here from Boston to New York.
They think that they can take $100,000 off a listing price. Every properties that we put on offer, it's either $100,000 or $150,000. Like, what are we doing here? We're not like that here.
Yeah.
You know, so.
There's one, he decided to go with another lender, and I think it's because he realized I knew this listing agent, but he called me and get pre-approved, and he was making this offer on a $320,000 type townhouse in Silverleaf. So it was one of the lowest prices in St. Johns County.
That's a good price.
For whatever reason, it is actually a short sale, and he offered $50,000 below what they were listing at. Now, I'm going to actually make that, I'm going to send that text message off to that agent. Did that bank accept, because they were going through all the motions, but I'm like, the bank still hasn't signed off on that. I don't see a bank in St. Johns County taking $1 less than what it's valued at.
You think, that's probably one of the challenges with a lot of these out-of-state, and average price. Because if we're talking about higher price buyers,
it's one thing when you're at 1.5 and you offer 1.4.
Correct.
That's a little different.
So yeah. Jacksonville people understands that, so they understand our market more.
Not on my list here, but speaking of people moving from out of state though to Florida for they've only vacationed here, they've gone to Disney World or whatever. What is it, if you've one of those stories that you probably tell at cocktail parties, but one of the crazy, obviously people always have crazy questions about alligators or whatever. Can you think of a question right now that one of the things they're moving to Florida? What is like a question
so
you just kind of giggle
inside?
It's
like do we have to worry about alligators on the lake behind us? Like, and I always say, if there's water, there's alligator.
That's right.
It's like the same question I ask my husband when we go to the beach. Honey, is there sharks there? Yeah, that's their home.
Yeah. And with social media now, it really does make you think like, oh my God, there's like a shark just sitting under the water all the time. You hear all these stories.
I feel that way.
And, I pull up the statistics because we take the kids out in the St. Johns River tubing. And yes, if you go up into the creeks, are there alligators in there? But it's very hard to even find them when you kind of sneak up in there trying to hope to see them.
Yeah.
But they're not swimming in the middle of the river, at least not in this section where we're at now. You go way up where it goes all the way towards, Sanford and so forth. Yeah, you could go and there's a lot of alligators.
Yeah.
I really think alligator meat needs to be cheaper. I don't know, make more purses out of the skin or whatever. I don't know, whatever they do.
Bags.
If you actually look up the statistics on alligator attacks or even shark attacks, it's like it's not even.
Well, so I don't know if you know this. I'm very terrified of snakes.
Oh, I hate snakes too.
I will have nightmares because of snakes, right? And I got better just because my husband told me, that they're more afraid of you than you're afraid of them.
Yeah.
Like, so now if I'm going out there, I'm just making noise. Because it's the same with, if you're going to jump in a pond with alligators, you're going to be eaten. But they're not there to attack you,
Yeah, you pretty much got to step on their head to get them. There's plenty of turtles. There's plenty of things for them to eat. Yeah. That's smaller than them and not going to put up as quite as big a fight as we may. Should sellers wait or list right now? Jacksonville sales 3.9 months of inventory, down sharply from January 26, where we're at 6.1 months of buyers return. What's the actual answer to should I wait or sell now in Jacksonville?
This depends on, of course, their situation. There's just really no one simple answer for that. If a seller has to relocate, of course, you have to sell your house or rent it out. It also depends on location, because you might have a house in the middle of Nassau County, and you're not getting a lot of people moving in there. So it really depends on where they at. So I just don't have a basic like one answer. It's really depends on their situation, depends on where they at, depends on the outcome that they're expecting.
Yeah.
So if they're thinking, well, if I sell now, will I still make 100,000 in this house? I'm like, probably not, so
yeah, it's comp it out first.
So that if you ask me this question my first year of real estate, what do you think my answer will be? Yes, every day is a great day to sell your house.
But you to the agents that are listening, that's why it's so important to, and I'm sure you would agree with me, one person is find out why. What's their why?
Yeah.
Why do they want to sell their house right now?
You have
do
to
they need to
connect.
sell it in 30 days because whatever? Did they get a divorce, a job transfer? What is it? Why do they want to sell? Why I want to move to Nocatee. Okay, all right, well, great. Okay, for you to move to Nocatee, do you need $100,000 down payment, $150,000 down payment?
There's so many factors there, and
dig that out.
Yeah, you have to really connect and ask the most uncomfortable questions because it's going to help you give them the best answers.
Yeah.
So
you got to find out the why.
Exactly.
St. Johns County median price recently came in at $542,000, the lowest affordability index in the entire region. You sell across all 5 counties. When buyer says, "I want to be in St. Johns County," what do you explore with them before you start showing homes?
Lifestyle first. What lifestyle are you trying to obtain?
What is it about St. Johns County?
Yeah, why are you wanting to move to St. Johns County? If they say school, great choice. They heard about a lot of them, like the most recent one are a couple from Michigan, where they heard about St. John's Rivertown. So they heard about the lifestyle that Rivertown has to offer. So I always ask about the lifestyle, what they've heard about St. John's, and I want to see if that kind of matches what they're looking for before anything else.
Yeah. Again, going back, finding out why, asking the question. You're not being nosy, but what you're doing is you're prepping for your presentation.
You have to be nosy because this is the biggest decision of their life. You don't know any details on why they're moving and all the other details. You're not really helping them.
Because I think we lose, and this is not just real estate sales, it could be any sales. Sometimes we lose the fact that we need to know what their goal is. Why are they moving? Because they want to do this and they want to have such down payment because they want to move and downsize, upsize, or whatever it might be. And if we're not asking, we never find out what their true goal is, which is our job, is to help them get to their goal.
But it's also coming down to you sounding more transactional than anything. If you ask all these questions, if you're trying to be nosy and get every detail about this move, it becomes more relational. It becomes more personal. Like I have clients that say, I never had a realtor ask me that question before, but I actually appreciate that you're asking about all these things.
Yes. So. Well, it shows you care because you want when they realize you're trying to get them to where they want to be. Then you're on their team, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the trust build for sure. Jacksonville's investor activity. Jacksonville's median single family asking rent is roughly $1,890 in early 2026, down from the pandemic eras that drew a wave for out-of-state buyers projecting rents in the market couldn't sustain. What does a smart real estate investor look like in Jacksonville in 2026? What are they buying? And what mistakes are you watching others make?
Okay, so let's be clear. We're talking about legit investors, right? We get all those, I need to flip I need to find a property to flip. I get like 100 texts or calls about those.
The Airbnb ones are the ones that I'm like, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah. I have an Airbnb in Amelia Island.
I've seen when you and your husband go and occasionally stay up there.
So I have a little bit of knowledge when it comes to short-term rentals, because I look at different areas. Investors-wise for rentals, I ask them, what is your margin? What are you expecting? Because you can't be an investor, have a rental property, and not make money, because that's not investing, right? So it's like, what is your goal? What are you looking for? So if they're saying, well, if I buy this particular house, can I get $2,000 a month on it? And and I'll be like, well, if the average rental in the area is only $1,500, then you can't rent it out for 2,000.
Right.
So you have to guide them. I said we need to find an area too where there's a huge demand for rentals, and places like NAS Jacksonville, NAS Mayport, you have all this military that are wanting to rent. Those are the great ones for, to have for tenants. So those are just some of the conversations I ask. I want to make sure that they understand what investors really means, because investing meaning you're putting money into a property expecting to make money.
Well, and I think to just touch on your real investors don't look at the $700,000 beachfront property to be their first investment.
No, unless if it's short term.
It might be something they graduate up to, but usually they have a little bit of experience in it. And I think also right now from a lending side and looking at where interest rates are and that sort of situation, good investors right now realize it's a buyer's market, so they might be able to save whatever on a purchase price, get some of the closing costs. It's a buyer's market.
Yeah.
Rates a little higher, but if they feel that in the next 24 months that hey, the rates are we're gonna drop in the interest rate, I can go buy that home right now. I may not make any money. Maybe I'm breaking even, or maybe losing $100 a month on that property, but I know I'm saving $20,000-$50,000 on the purchase price, because when the rates drop, the property value is going to go up, and I'm getting in now in the market. So there's a lot of different strategies that they're having. But when you say, when you gestured there was non-professional investors, they always want to be this dream home. Oh, like I got this dream home up in the mountains. I'm Airbnb-ing. You want to be experienced in that.
Well, they get a little money and they're like, I'm going to buy my first investment property. I'm going to call Marissa and I'll ask her to find me, the best, property out there. And they'll see this like really good price, let's say $150,000 on the west side. I want to buy this property because I have saved some money. I'll buy this property. Then they don't know, okay, we need to find out condition. Is the money you save, you have extra to get the house fixed.
Yeah, it's in a money pit.
Yeah, and then the second thing, I have to watch the average rental price in the area. But you also have to be realistic. The lower the price for a rental that you get, the quality of tenants you get is questionable.
There's a happy medium.
Yeah, so you have to expect saving extra money, because every time you have a turnover every year, you expect that you're going to have to fix the property, repaint the property. So those things, versus you buy newer home and you put your price where, your rental price on the average, and you get a good quality tenant in there that will renew your lease. That's actually better.
And sit there and pay your mortgage down and gaining you equity. And in a new construction neighborhood, after 10 years or so, you should have some decent equity on average. I mean, obviously, at different times, you're going to get more or less. But, you've got to think through the game, one, on a monthly basis. Am I going to lose money? Can I afford to lose money? Or am I going to just have enough to survive and make the repairs?
Yeah.
Can I get someone in there long term? Maybe they're here for 2 or 3 years, because of their orders, and they're just going to rent for 3 years. That's a beautiful client.
Correct.
Yeah.
I do also have to share, a lot of our newer agents, they have to really be well informed when it comes to short-term rentals, because I have one client that actually have used a different agent and bought a townhome thinking he can do a Airbnb on it. And they closed the house. There was a special
St. Augustine Beach, Jack's Beach, you could pull that off.
Yeah. So they were able. Then he closed on the house.
Well, you're thinking also because of the guidelines, the HOA and so forth. It's not going to allow.
Well, the community, HOA doesn't. You have to make sure you read the covenants and restrictions that they're allowing. Short-term rentals, and he learned the hard way, because he fully furnished the property ready for short-term rental, and then HOA found out about it.
Yep.
And shut them down. So.
And I guarantee you, as you and I know, there's agents out there that are hearing their request or do not know this. You're not the first person to bring it on. We probably don't talk about it enough, though. And we do have, because of the beaches and so forth, people at St. Augustine Beach, there's only I think it's 100 permits they give out.
Oh yeah.
It's not just I can do this in an HOA. They may require a 6 or yearly lease, 6 month or yearly lease, whatever it is, or some places are month by month. You've got to know what the covenants does allow short term rentals.
Yeah.
And then I think one of the biggest things is I don't think people realize, because my wife and I have several condos, and we can short-term rental if we want to, but really we've learned we like the people who come in like a minimum's a month. They're going to stay here for 3 months during the wintertime or while their house is being built or whatever, because the logistics of cleaning and the cost of all that to keep it maintained is
I agree.
Yeah. Can be if you I'll clean it myself. Are you? When they move out on Saturday and you got another person moving in on Saturday afternoon, are you going to rush over there and make sure you've got it clean for the next person? Yeah. Kids ball game or something comes up, right? Negotiations. Nearly 59% of Jacksonville's homes had price reductions recently. Buyers have more options and more leverage, especially on homes that have been sitting. Walk me through your negotiation philosophy. What are you looking for in the listing before you even write an offer? And how do you structure the deal to win without insulting the seller?
Yeah, so the first thing I really look to, after I ask my buyers, most of the time buyers will say, even if you told them this is probably where we need to start, they're probably, no, we're going to start at this number. Like, okay, so the first thing I do is actually look at the history of the property, how long it's been in the market, when was the last price reduction, because if that just happened yesterday, there's no way this seller is willing to take another $40,000 reduction on it, right? So I need to look at the history of the listing. The third thing I do is I make phone call to the listing agent. I want to see the motivation.
Top tip right there. Yes,
I want to see the motivation. What is the reason why the sellers are moving? Are they completely out of the house? Have they purchase a home? That's important, because if they've already purchased a home and they have mortgage on this, it means they're paying mortgage. I think
taxes.
Yeah, knowing too when they purchase it, what's the mortgage balance on it, I think are the couple most important things for me, because that's going to give me idea how negotiable seller is going to be. Yeah,
and be able to properly prep your buyer on what a proper offer would be, is having all those pieces, and when you, and I think you would agree, the more pieces you have of what you just discussed will narrow that offer down.
It keeps them informed. That there's always a strategy on offers.
I just say strategy.
On offers, and if you have all those pieces together, like you said, it's easy to kind of sway these people, unless they're just really hard-headed, like my people from Boston. They just
I mean, sometimes they do want to just, I had one recently, actually it was on an Airbnb purchase, where they did offer lower, let's say about 10%, but they ended up coming back and they got about, I think, maybe 3 or 4% off of where the person recently had just dropped the price to. So they had a little bit more room and they squeezed it out of them. But you're right. Are you making it? If they accepted your low ball offer, you're 10% lower than what they're asking for, of course you're ready to accept it, because you feel you really got a good deal. But realistically, where do you think it's going to sell? And I think properly preparing your buyers to saying, okay, we'll offer that. I'm going to make sure they counter, because I'm going to talk to the others and say, hey, if they say no, well, then give me a counter. I was imagining you were going to ask, let them throw. Are they going to come down? They might get that couple extra inches. That really is what they're looking for.
The couple of things too that I also I almost forgot to include there: valuation of the property, because we can offer anything we want. If the property, I will look really, really stupid if I agree with the low, with that offer, and then the property doesn't appraise, and everybody's ready to move forward, and then here comes the appraisal and it didn't appraise. So I have to be very careful on making sure that this property is going to appraise for what they're paying for.
The agents out there that might be listening right now, do you feel, because we know 70-some% just didn't even write a deal, so that we're not talking about them, but the people that are doing deals are still some people that are, they're doing a handful of deals a year, but are all the buyer's agents doing the due diligence of running the comps themselves? Or are they just accepting the purchase price, assuming the selling agent has already done that, and they're like, well, they must be offering it going? Are they really doing, so like you're going in and you're finding all the pieces to the puzzle to say, yes, this is a reasonable offer? I just don't believe every agent does that.
I don't think so either. Especially, as a new agent, you have to learn, and you learn by making mistakes. And that's how I've come up to all this point in my career, because I have made mistakes during my first few years that now I know what to ask and what to do so that I can get this deal to closing. And so, yeah, I think a lot of the agents, they just don't do their due diligence. But I think it's just because of time. They don't know until, because you have to remember, they only get what the training you got from getting your license is not something you're using in real estate.
Yeah.
The training you get from your brokerage is there, but it's case by case. You don't really get to apply that. And you might have learned all those things from your brokerage training, but you're dealing with a completely different situation, and you're only going to learn until you've gone through it.
I'm going to throw a tip out there. I think you would agree with this, because I'm going to assume that a lot of agents aren't. There's an offer price. Let's say it's $600,000, and your buyer's going like, "Hey, we'll offer full price. We want that house. Whatever. Maybe they get some closing costs. Where maybe you go and if you're doing your due diligence while you're writing up that offer, and you notice, hey, that same model in that neighborhood is selling for that same 5% less.
Yeah.
It's actually in better condition. It's been renovated. I'm looking at the pictures, or I went by and drove by that house, and I'm like, I know you like that house, but let's go back at them with a little bit lower offer and say, hey, you've got a house right now for sale right now for 5% less. It's the same model, and it's on the golf course, and you're not.
And they can say, oh, no, we still want to do it anyways. Like,
that's fine.
Yeah, and you're right. It's better for me to have that moment and say what I have to say at that moment, so that down the road, if something happens, they can't come back to me and say, why did you not tell us?
That part, but the other part is true. You're going to bat for them. You're thinking of them ahead
you're watching for their best interest.
Exactly.
So it's not like, for us, it's easy job. You want the house full price? Write up the deal, let's do it.
Yeah.
But if I know that, I think that's great, but I don't think the property will appraise.
Yeah.
And I don't want us to
Let's poke at them a little bit, because I have a comp right here.
Exactly.
This listing right here, or this house just actually closed. It may not. You may have known it just closed last week, and it's you're not getting it, or it's under contract or whatever. There's those things moving around, because I think you would agree right now, you have to really look at what's actually listed, and in particular, especially our planned urban development subdivisions, and what's listed and what's closed really in the last few months.
I go back 3 months, 3 to 4 months. I don't even go back 6 months, because I feel like the market is changing so much.
Exactly. Yeah. If you've got stuff that has happened very recently, you've got to put a lot of weight in it. Last formal question.
Oh my gosh, it's already last question. I thought we just got started.
We're almost in an hour and a half here. Building a 19-year career. And our data shows the industry has a significant share of active agents through 2024 and into this is 2024 and 2026. Agents still thriving in 2026 were. I don't know if it's my glasses or my eyes are going that bad. I'm reading from my teleprompter.
I wish I could help you.
I know. The agents still having in 2026 were forged to hard markets before. You have 19 years from 2008, the recovery, the pandemic, now this. What does it take to build a real estate career that survives every market cycle? And what do you know now that you wish someone had told you when you pass the exam?
Wow, that's a lot of questions.
That is a big overall.
I
think the question in the book that I'm helping AI's helping me write the book, and one thing is go back and ask them based on what they know now. What would Marissa 2026 tell Marissa 2028?
Okay. Be more realistic, I think. Understanding and having the right expectation that this market this career, this business is so cyclical. I always say that to a lot of agents. I get a lot of agents saying, it's been so slow for me and this and that. I'm like, hey, you have to remember, you're looking at people that are doing well on social media, and that's why you're making all these comments that you're so slow. But then if you actually look back, you don't know that they were looking at you at some point where you were doing so good, and they're asking themselves, why am I so slow? I always think in that almost 19 years is so cyclical. You'll have a year that's so great. as much as we want this to be a steady business, even for lenders, we both know in reality it's not a steady business. You'll have months where it's so great. You have months that are so slow. One thing that I didn't do when I first started was I didn't prepare for the slow season when I was newer. I thought it will just be like money closing after closings, and I was a one-day millionaire and all that stuff. But, towards later on, I realized, you know what? I need to save for the slower months so that I'm not sitting here like looking at people and saying, "Oh, my business sucks right now."
Or you can go on a vacation without going, "Oh my God, I'm not going to be around for a week or two." And
somebody asked me, "Is like, how are you even going on vacations? How are you even doing all these things? How are you able to do all this? Like, you're working out and all these things in your life." Like, another thing is balance and prioritizing everything. And I think we talked about this on our last podcast together. Prioritization is so important. It's just not in your business, but in your life, and if you just put the right people in order, I think that's one great ingredient in having a very successful.
It gives you peace. It gives you a peace of, you got to build a foundation. It's like, like family. When you go home, that when you go inside your house, what's going, for the most part, know what's going to happen. And that's why you're at peace at home.
Yeah. And it also helps you with your time, because if you don't have a list of priorities, you're all over the place, you're worn out, and you still don't have any money. So I think having that prioritization in your life is so important. Faith, I think if anyone doesn't have faith
it's part of your foundation.
It's part of my foundation. I can't thank God enough on every blessings He has given me. Even giving me peace during times of uncertainties. I think you can't get that anywhere else.
Well, it goes back to what we've said several times. It goes back to the maturity. You realize as much, life is challenging. I got that Rocky thing out there saying, it's going to, life is, my wife doesn't like it. She doesn't think it's life. I forget how he says it. Life is hard. It's going to knock you down. It's going to get you to your knees, but you got to get up. And the realization is we're throwing curveballs all the time.
Yeah.
How can can you hit the curve? Do you know how to, get around the curve? What is, you just got, that's what gets us up every day.
Yeah.
If there was no challenges, I don't know what we would be doing.
Yeah. And if you fall, you get back up and go back from the beginning. There's no problem going back to basics again. Like I do that. I still have my binder, the old binder I have during my first year in real estate. This is before they have all the CRMs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I go back to what I did, during my first year. Once you have that, when things are not doing well, you did well when you did all those things on your first year. So go back to it. Yeah, everything is so great and nice because everything is is on your fingertips. But there's nothing that will replace the things that you did during your first or second year that made you successful.
I want to, because are you still regularly doing the Buffini trainings?
Yeah, we're doing it. I think
you're starting. Because you do it in
every year.
Once a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Finish it. Just say some stuff about Buffini. Why you follow him? Obviously, you're like a certified trainer. For him. What someone who might be listening maybe don't even know anything about Buffini. Yeah. But why did you choose Buffini? Because there are others out there. But what has Buffini done? And obviously you've bought into his program so much you wanted to train others on it. Yeah.
So one thing about Buffini programs or training, they don't sugarcoat things. Unlike other trainers, I think I know the difference between a trainer and a motivational speaker. It's great, both things, but I feel like Buffini, because he did this, as a career before he became Brian Buffini. He was a struggling immigrant, and I can relate to him. I think that's one of the reasons why I like him.
Right.
And he did the business. He was a realtor, struggling and all that stuff. And he applied all the things that he learned along the way not from any training from somebody, but from his experience. And a lot of his trainings are real life training stuff that happens to a lot of realtors in a lot of a situation.
Right.
So, other training programs, I mean, we have all these people that sells all this training, but they're not
relatable.
No.
I think there's a lot of people out there, I see it all the time. Maybe they have that 1 year of success that you're talking about. Now they want to go and train people.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Well, we're talking about a particular person. We're not going to name that person.
Yeah.
That sells.
I know several, actually.
That sells different training programs locally, but they're not doing business.
Right.
How can you take their advice or their training if they're not doing business? They have to constantly.
Right.
Well,
as my boss says, keeping your hand on the electric fence, and if you maybe you have a non-producing broker, well, are they staying on top of things?
Yeah.
I know some. I always mention Howard Flash, and I think he stays on top of things.
Yeah.
Your leaders over there at United,
Sonny,
too, Sonny and Ray, stay on top of things.
Oh,
They're
yeah,
always
definitely.
leading the way. But if you're going to be doing trainings, you've got to have some credibility of some years of doing it.
Yeah, and I like doing trainings from people that are still actively doing business, because their experience, what they're experiencing at the moment is so fresh that that's actually something that I'll probably experience. So I want to learn from that. So I went to one of the best training I've ever went to, and I didn't go this year. I don't know if you've heard of Boomtown. It's like that CRM, lead generation. I would say the best training I've ever gotten.
They brought in a keynote speaker or something?
It's not even a keynote. It's just regular real estate agents that are doing well for a long time. We're not talking about, like you said, you did it 1 to 2 years and then all of a sudden they're experts and they can sell programs.
Right.
And no, not like that. So they're actively still selling real estate. And the stuff that they're doing to be different is what we need to learn. I don't need to hear from someone that's not doing any business because something worked.
They're not staying in touch. They've gotten so far, because you can get totally behind the whole marketing of that training and all the things that you're actually not keeping it, updating it, make sure, or getting new stories.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been the problem with the book, because I started writing it and then I've had another podcast. Like, for instance, I'll take this transcript and I'm going to upload it in there and I'm going to say, okay, is there anything new out of this that we could add to Marissa's, or maybe update, make her section better? Because things are.
We can just write a book
I can continue writing the book forever, right? But I'm almost there. Yeah. I would say I'm 95%. Well, the 95%, more than 95% of getting it to the editor. That's the next thing, is having a line by line editor go through it, and then we will get it out there.
The last thing I would say to stay 19 years or almost 19 years is stay connected, but in small dosage. When I say stay connected, when I say that, I meant about what's going on with the technology. You need to you can't be old fashioned and just stay there. We're integrating. You need to be following what everybody's doing, but in the level where you're not just consume doing that. I've seen people using their AI to do their videos of themselves. So it's very robotic. That's cool, but that's not you, So
they're not paying the really high dollar ones that could produce a AI video that someone can't tell the difference of.
Exactly.
It's still at a level okay, I could tell just by the tone in your voice.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah. So, stay connected, with the technology and all that stuff. Be well informed about that, but in a small dosage, because it will take away that relational, that I was mentioning earlier. So
and I think you lead into which could be a whole nother podcast, is how there's so many flashy trinkets and things that you can do. You can get overwhelmed without actually doing the basics of the networking and being out there and actually telling people what you do on a daily basis. You can get overwhelmed and be sitting there trying to create videos, which I will end this with a plug from Reed Tomato. What we'll take from this episode and create some great blogs. Blogging is back in. You can spend all this money on a videographer. I'm going to tell you, you will not get anywhere near the amount if you start blogging, because that blog is out there and AI is looking for it.
Yeah.
And it wants recent, current, on the ground, the latest, greatest information, because that's what AI is supposed to do for you. And if you're that provider, you're the one who's going to be mentioned. So I appreciate you coming back on.
Thank you for
This
having
was a
me
great
again.
show.
It's like we're just having beer and drinks.
Yeah. we will eventually get there. I've always wanted to get that. You suggested to put the girls together. And, that was 4 years ago. We still haven't done it. But
do we still have the girls?
We could put a room. I could put a room of girls together. Though.
Yeah, we may
so.
need to do it somewhere where a pub or something.
Well, with my vision, if my vision comes together, we can go.
Well, I'll pray. For
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank
Marissa,
you so much.
Thank you.
This may be it for today's episode of Real Estate Excellence, but we both know your pursuit of excellence doesn't stop here. To connect with the best of the best and really take your skills to the next level, join our community by visiting TracyHayesPodcast.com, where you'll meet more like-minded individuals looking to expand their inner circle and their personal experience. That's available at TracyHayesPodcast.com.